And I can remember the night my friend George Miller and I, we were at the Comedy Store, and they introduced Robin Williams. And all of a sudden he comes up on stage, and you know what it is. It's like nothing we had ever seen before. He comes in like a hurricane.
Yeah.
And now, the longer he's on stage, the worse we feel about ourselves. And because it's not stopping. Yeah. And then he finishes, and I thought, oh, that's it. They're going to have to put an end to show business, because what can happen after this?
Every family has its favorite stories, and one of our best is about how Mork from Ork was born. I had noticed that my daughters, Lori and Kathleen, were just crazy about Happy Days. The girls were always clamoring to bring their friends to the live filming Friday night on the Paramount lot. My son Scott, however, was not interested in Happy Days at all.
I wasn't really watching it. He put the Fonzie jumping over the trash cans because I was really into Evel Knievel, and Evel Knievel was big, and I didn't tell him. I just, he was, but I kind of stopped watching for a period when Star Wars came out, and he would come to us and say, what do you want to see on Happy Days? And I said, an alien, a spaceman.
There are no space aliens on Happy Days, he said, very matter-of-factly.
Can't we have an alien on Happy Days? That would have been a great, I would have liked to have been there when Garry went, I don't know. There's the 60s, there was no alien abductions, and we're definitely not doing any rectal probes.
But it's the 1950s. Where does a space alien come from? He paused for a minute and then looked directly at me with the clarity and wisdom that seemed to belong more to a network executive than to an 8-year-old boy. And he said, Fonzie could have a dream. On Happy Days, we were running out of adversaries or villains for Fonzie to fight with. I realized Fonzie could have a dream, and we could have a villain from outer space.
And he went to the writers and said, Scotty wants a spaceman, and they all rolled their eyes.
But I said to the writers, his dreams coming is an alien. We do an alien. Space is big. My son says so.
So he comes in and Scotty had an idea. And that's when everybody at the writer's room went, oh God, what's this? We literally drew straws to see who would be forced to write this debacle.
So we started pitching different stories, came up with, the Mork from Mork episode.
And Joe Glauberg lost and wrote the episode and retired shortly thereafter.
Once the premise was constructed, we had one major hurdle left, to cast the right alien. I wanted the actor John Biner, who had a wild look in his eyes and the offbeat wit I thought would be good for an alien. With my funny co-producer writers Dale McCraven and Bruce Johnson, and my very calm and efficient sister Ronnie, now my full casting director, we arranged a meeting with Biner and made a tentative deal for him to star in the series.
I was dating a girl who happened to be on Happy Days, and she knew Ronnie Howard. She invited me to a dinner party at her little house, a little apartment in Hollywood. And I came, and there was Ron Howard and his wife. We had dinner together, the four of us. And afterwards, we sat in the living room, and he said, John, they're looking for someone to play a guy from outer space. And I said, does he make noises? He said, yes. I said, well, I'm not interested. That's as far as it went.
Jerry Paris, the episode's director, had reached out to Jonathan Winters, but he was about to leave for a tour of Australia.
Then there was talk. Jerry Paris was trying to get Dom DeLuise to do it, but he was doing a Burt Reynolds movie, and he couldn't do it. And people would read it and didn't want to do it.
Instead, the actor Roger Rees, an alumnus of the Royal Shakespeare Company, signed on for the part.
On Mondays, we read the script that we're shooting that week, and we'd read a script for the following week so they could rewrite it. Well, on one particular Monday, there was a script called Mork from Mork.
An actor was hired to play the part of Mork. We read the script Monday morning, got a good response.
I don't think there was a word in the dictionary that really was the correct word for disaster.
The teleplay was not particularly beloved on the Happy Days set. When it was first reviewed at a table read in January 1978, about a week before production was to begin, co-star Anson Williams said, we got this script that was horrid, horrible. We were all embarrassed.
Now, Henry Winkler, who's the kindest, gentlest, respectable guy in the world.
I think I heard Henry, threw the script down.
Everyone knew it was terrible, and they all right, they sidelined it. Well, we'll make it work. Well, the next Monday we read it. It's terrible, but we're doing it that week.
I liked it. I liked it. I thought, I thought it was going to get funnier as the week went on, like all the episodes did, but I liked that it was a fantasy. I thought it was good. I was for changing it up. I always wanted, I was always rooting for us to try things with the show.
If you ask all of us in the cast, we'd probably say initially we thought it was the worst script that had been handed to us of any of the episodes. But it just seemed forced and it didn't track really well, and we were worried about this script.
In fact, the network didn't even like the episode and wanted to junk it. It's the only time the network ever raised their hand and said, we don't think this is a good enough episode, we don't want to do it. And they didn't like the fantasy element of it. It wasn't that it was poorly written, really. The tonal shift was too weird for them. Garry really fought for the show.
And Garry goes, don't worry, we got a week, it'll be good, we'll fix it.
The actors left for the day that Monday to rehearse. And as I recall, the actor playing Mork at the end of the day said something like, I just really don't want to do this.
They hired this kind of big, goofy guy to play Mork. And now, God bless him, but he's just reading the script, right? And it's awful. He's awful because the material's awful. We're awful. Everybody's awful. That guest star quits. I can't be on camera. I'm not doing this. It's too embarrassing. Walks off the set.
The actor Roger Rees signed on for the part, only to withdraw early in the week. I can't do this role, he said. He's not a real person.
Which was, I think, shocking because, an actor wants to work. This is a #1 show. So all of a sudden, we're shooting Friday night. So, there's kind of a panic. Got to get, I wouldn't say a panic, but obviously to replace that actor, as soon as possible.
Tuesday was our first real serious rehearsal day. We showed up expecting to see the actor. No one. Henry and I look around. There's no Mork. So we just started blocking it with somebody else reading and filling in the lines.
Now, you have to understand, usually a guest star would be at the table on Monday when we read the script for the first time and rehearse with us because you only have 4.5 days. It's now Wednesday. We don't have anybody.
Garry Marshall comes in. Okay, does anyone know a funny Martian?
Ronnie contacted the William Morris agency to see if they could suggest anyone else. A new agent named Alan Eisman tried to sell us Richard Lewis and Jeff Altman.
And then they started auditioning pretty much every stand-up comic they could find to come in and play this alien.
Al Molinaro goes, well, there's this kid in my Harvard Lembeck improv class named Robin Williams. And then Ronnie Howland, Gary's sister, who's in casting, says, oh, yeah, he was on the new Laugh-In, that bad show for 6 episodes, but I think he's funny.
I did the second Laugh-In, and it was a good experience. It was like one of those things where everyone came on that show thinking, this is it, I'm going to be a big star, and left going, I better find other work.
When I asked Ronnie what his credits were, she said he did street performing on corners and passed the hat for tips.
She had seen Robin as a street performer. Some people say it was Hollywood Boulevard. I thought it might have been the 3rd Street Promenade.
So I sent Ronnie and director Jerry Paris to check out this comedian.
You'd go on, it'd be about 1:30, and it was a great time because you got, like the early in the evening, all the stars had been on. At that time, it was Jimmy Walker, and all these people would come to see, name comedians, and then I'd get to go on late and just kick and have a great time.
One of the characters he did in the stand-up act was sort of like an alien character. So he already had this arsenal of tools under his belt for this guy, and he put it to good use.
Ronnie came back and told me Robin was indeed special, and now she begged me to see him too. You want me to build a major network sitcom around a man who passes the hat for tips, I said. It's a very full hat, Ronnie said.
I thought that was a great line, Marshall recalled. So I said, all right, bring in the guy with the full hat. That Wednesday, Marshall and Paris auditioned Robin in a marathon casting session of about 50 actors to fill the Mork role.
And the day I went in for my audition, Richard Lewis, who's a great Jewish comic, is coming out going, I don't speak Norwegian. And I went, what does that mean?
Lewis knew he didn't have a chance in hell because you were supposed to deliver the lines, and what you imagined was the voice of Space Alien. Lewis didn't do voices. Williams, on the other hand, couldn't stop doing voices. Man, this is practically written for you, Lewis said. If you don't get this part, it's a joke. Lewis was called into the audition room first. He started reading as if he were a Danish alien, but then stopped. Robin Williams is next, he told the casting director and his assistants. He is Mork, and if he doesn't get this, then you are all crazy. I don't want to waste any more of your time, he said, walking to the door and opening it. Mork is waiting outside, and I'd like to bring him in right now, so would you all please welcome Robin Williams.
And then I went in and basically just started talking in the weird kind of helium voice.
We have come to your planet looking for virgins. Oh, no luck here.
Robin read for Ronnie Hallam, the associate producer, and Jerry Paris, our director and producer.
And the director, Jerry Paris, says to Robin, well, why don't you sit down in the chair the way you think an alien would? And so Robin sits down in the chair head first and rolls his body up so that his feet are above his head.
I walked into my office, and the street performer was sitting on my couch, upside down, on his head. When he saw me, he stood straight up and started pretending to drink a glass of water with his finger.
Just started off just playing, and then just because I went, what have you got to lose?
Robin didn't make any small talk when he came into the room. He didn't say, "Hi, you play golf?" or any of the nonsense most actors talk to you about, Marshall recalled. He was just there to audition. It went past where the script went, and he was quiet, Marshall said. He was only loud when you said go. Before that, he didn't talk. We hired him.
And they went, yes. I went, serious. And so I got the gig.
And Jerry, without even making a deal, he just grabbed him and brought him to the set.
The door opens. You see a little light at the end of stage 19. And Bobby Hoffman, our casting director, who always wore a little sailor cap, a little blue captain's cap, came strutting in. He's beaming. He says, I got him.
All of a sudden, head of casting comes down with a young man, very quiet, very shy.
The door opens, and in walks this guy. He's got suspenders. He's got a striped shirt, big head of hair, and he comes up very quietly. And Bobby says, I just read him. We love him. Garry likes it. We just approved him. And nobody's ever heard of him. And he's very meek, very, very quiet. And we said, okay, all right, great. Well, he's got funny suspenders.
So, the writers and producers are there, the network and studio executive. So Robin comes out.
This young man, Robin Williams, picks up the script, and we start doing the scene.
And we started right in rehearsing. And he started improvising instantly.
I mean, right off the bat, I went, well, I can play. Can I play a little with this? And they went, oh, if you must.
If a guest star changes a line or ad lib, it's irritating, and he'd say, well, don't do that. But Robin was being Robin.
And he's flicking my slightly oversized ears. He's messing up Fonzie's hair. He's doing anything and everything, close enough to the story to kind of keep it going, making sound effects. All of that Mork from Mork stuff started happening right there, spontaneously.
Within 5-6 minutes, you knew you were in the presence of greatness. And I knew that my job now was to keep a straight face, because you know who he is, Now, imagine him raw. Whatever anybody said went in and came out with lightning speed.
As I said, I'll never forget that day. People were totally incredulous, like, who is this guy?
Henry Winkler and I look at each other, and it's like, oh my God, this is a shot of creative energy that, is fueling us.
I've never seen a whole gang of us pick up. And boy, oh boy, here was this kid that we'd never seen anything like him.
The result of that first run-through was staggering. What we saw from Robin and from the cast, because they work a little harder to keep up.
Henry, he and John Travolta were the biggest things on TV. And for him to be challenged, and this speaks well for Henry, he was exhilarated by it.
That might have been the most difficult week that I ever did, because he never did anything twice the same, so you could never get used to it.
And basically went in and had a good time, because it was, it's me, basically, in the midst of them in the 60s with Ron Howard, Henry, who was funny, but at the same time, I just trying anything. They went, can I try this one? What's to lose? Hey! So it's me just playing off of them.
Ron and Henry, being so gracious and great people, kind of backed up and let him run through the scenery.
Ron Howard and Henry Winkler were two of the most generous actors working in television. So when Robin guest starred on the show, they gave him not only the support he needed, but also the room to shine on his own.
It was the most exhilarating thing, because it was hilarious. And we realized that it was all we could do to hang on. And that became our job that week, was just keep up with Robin Williams.
On Thursday, January 19th, Robin showed up to the Paramount lot to begin work on My Favorite Orkan, that would begin shooting at 7 p.m. on Friday night.
Is it the costume designers? This originally came from Paramount Wardrobe. This was used in a Star Trek episode called The Savage Curtain. And then the costumers put on the triangular things and the gloves and the boots later on to make it a Mork costume.
Now, I was a few scenes into the show, so I came late for rehearsal. It was like, it was intense. I opened the door. All the writers are on the set. This is camera blocking day. We're shooting Friday night. No one's ever there. And there's Robin Williams improvising the whole show. Nanu, on the head, do the thing. Genius in front of you.
I wasn't there on Thursday morning because my call was until later. But when I walked onto that soundstage, 11, 12 o'clock on Thursday, there was this palpable buzz. I can't even describe it. I walk in and I see people and talking in huddles, and then somebody rushes over to me and says, "Where do you see this guy? Where do you see who they got to play Mork? He's unbelievable."
Jerry Pierce runs over. He's a genius. He's a genius. He's a genius.
So I walk over and they're in the middle of a scene. Robin was doing a scene, I think it was with Henry and Ron.
I said to him, "Hey, you want to rumble?" He went, da-da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da-da-da, want to rumble? I mean, he was singing West Side Story. He was all over the place. He was like, I don't know, like this firefly, like this sprite.
Robin carried with him a script that he had marked up with brief notes and pointers. On its 9th page, the stage directions described Mork's arrival at the Cunninghams' home and his entry into the pop culture consciousness. The door opens, and Mork, a spaceman wearing a very ominous-looking black helmet with face mask and silver spacesuit, is standing in the doorway. Mork makes some rapid, high-pitched noises. He's speaking in his native tongue. In his scribbly cursive handwriting, Robin wrote, "Close Encounters." The stage directions indicated that Mork speaks in a weird, high-pitched voice whenever he's alone with Richie, and a normal voice when other people are present. And following his brief opening lines, "I am Mork, from Ork." Robin noted, "Handshake. Vulcan." That was his reminder to himself to extend a split-finger greeting, a la Star Trek's Mr. Spock, to Howard. In the take used in the episode, he went a bit farther, adding in an adenoidal, rapidly spoken, "Que pasa?"
And you kind of like, what? Who is this guy? It seemed like he was from another planet.
Every writer, they're just writing everything like as fast as you do, you know?
And that was the last time I ever heard the script the way it was written.
By Friday night, it's one of the best scripts in the history of Happy Days.
By Friday night, the buzz was so prevalent that all the suits from ABC were there watching.
I used to know that these network executives would come. There'd be a lot of these guys, named Ted. Gosh, we're very excited. There's a lot of energy here. Yeah, thank you.
Robin Williams promised that he would stay with the script. At least a third of what's in that final episode were riffs that he pulled out and did for the first time when we were shooting.
Happy Days is filmed before a live audience.
When we shot the episode Friday night, people went nuts.
We had live audiences, which was great for me.
I was so happy to have a live audience because they were the true arbiters of what was special.
There's 300 people watching the show, right? The world doesn't know them yet. They wouldn't stop yelling and clapping and yelling. And it went on and on.
It's like the Soundstage 19 was picked up off its foundation, rattled like a baby rattle, and thrown back down.
When Robin took his curtain call, the audience gave him a standing ovation, giving even me the chills.
It was like a light was on here. I've never seen that bright a light on any. I mean, it was just so special and unusual.
It was great because the network executives were caught off guard. Like one of them came up to me afterwards and said, "You're the funniest man I've seen since Jack Carter." I went, "Oh, thank you."
Between Thursday morning and Friday night, created a superstar.
Next Friday night, we're doing our show. Oh, hi, Ants. Here's Robin Williams giving gifts to everybody.
And then he came back the next Monday, and actors never come back. He was all present. And I knew he didn't know my name. He called me Top Mom. Wonderful book of fantastic drawings.
Tuesday on Happy Days, Fonzie has a close encounter of a strange kind.
My Favorite Orkan was broadcast on February 28, 1978, and it was as popular as Happy Days had been all season. It was seen in about 23.8 million households, making it the second most watched show of the week, just behind the latest episode of Laverne and Shirley.
It turned out to be very popular. I mean, it was kind of weird because people were going, "What's this?" in the middle of Happy Days. It did very well.
The reaction to Robin was so overwhelming that ABC got thousands and thousands of phone calls and letters talking about this guy and the show.
At first, the episode's success seemed to pay no further dividends to Robin, beyond the satisfaction of a job well done. After the show aired, he resumed his stand-up comedy club work and appeared on America Tonight, the TV talk show parody with Martin Mull and Fred Willard.
The Tuesday night the show aired on ABC, I got a call from my Paramount boss, Michael Eisner, who said, "Garry, I heard you have a Martian who got a standing ovation. Can you build a series around him? Do it fast."
Eisner told him that ABC hated what it had for the fall and wondered if Marshall had anything new in the works. As Marshall recalled the conversation, Eisner said, "They like you, so what else you got? Make up something."
Cut to, Paramount eventually has this commitment to ABC where ABC, another series fell apart. They have to put on one of Paramount's shows. There's a commitment. They've got this thing. So Paramount, well, what have we got? And then they went, well, this kid played an alien on Happy Days. Well, we'll spin that off. Spin what off? Yeah, right, an alien. Right, we need another My Favorite Martian.
Marcy and I set up a conference call between Garry Marshall in California and the programming board in New York, which Fred Pierce ran. And we said, okay, Garry, you ready to sell this? Because you're a better salesman than we are. We're having trouble.
So I said, Happy Days had a guy, Mork from Mork, and there was silence. And thank God, see, in the room sat a girl who herself was a genius, but they didn't know because her name rhymed. So they thought that showed a lack of talent. Her name was Marcy Carsey, but she piped up and said, "I saw him. He was great."
Making up the show on the fly, Marshall decided to set it in Boulder, Colorado, where he had a niece who was attending the University of Colorado. Asked for a title, Marshall said he wanted to call it The Mork Chronicles, because he comes to Earth and he observes and he reports back.
And they said, nobody's going to know what Chronicles means. We want something like you could name the pets after.
So I said, I know what you want. You want Mork and Mabel. Mork and somebody, right?
So I said, all right, it's Mork and another M, Mork and Mindy. There, 2 M's. They'll name their dogs and cats. Perfect. We love that. That's how you create a show. Name a dog and a cat.
They had this deal, so we didn't have to go through the pilot thing, and they basically, it was like a mail order bride. They had Pam, and they superimposed her of my episode. She had a series where she played a nun. So it's basically the alien and the nun.
And Fred Pierce called him up, and he had a lot of respect for Garry, but he said, Garry, I have to say, nobody gets this show. It seems to us it's like a one-joke show. And Garry said, well, it is a one-joke show. He said, but Three's Company is half a joke, Fred. And then Fred laughed, and the show was sold based on the fact that he actually had a point that Three's Company was sort of a thin idea. And because he made Fred Pierce laugh, the show got on the air.
And it was a commitment to go on air with no pilot, just boom. It paid the bills, and it allowed me to work. There was no acting work on that per se at that time for me, so it was like, okay, this works, let's do it. And then when the series hit, it was like, wow, serious? Okay, let's keep going.
There was some real destiny and fate at work that all of it went down the way it did, and that he got that part. Nobody could have been as good as him in that role. And then it just showcased him and then launched him, obviously, and then into an amazing career where he did so many different variety and styles and comedy, drama, everything.
One of the great experiences of my life was being in that episode where Robin Williams, I really, for the first time, exposed his genius to the whole world.
I had no idea what my progression would be. I was just doing it. I was just getting gigs, trying to work. It was literally like, what's the next job? The idea of this, that I had no idea that I would ever even get a series. It was luck. I got lucky. I won the lottery.
Like shot out of a cannon, he goes and he's on the Happy Days show. And then from the Happy Days show, he gets to be on Mork and Mindy. Now there's some structure to his life. He's not at the Comedy Store every night because he's got an actual job. So the rest of us can pretend that it never happened. but yet then he goes from Mork and Mindy, and then he starts making movie after movie after movie. He's nominated 4 times for an Academy Award.
It's like being taken from the bottom of Death Valley to the top of the Empire State Building in 2 seconds. It's totally disorienting to be from just performing in the Comedy Store, small clubs, and all of a sudden have everybody know you.
No, it's weird. Even after I won the Academy Award, it was like a week later, there were still people going, Mork.